The North Carolina General Assembly could vote this week to overturn Governor Roy Cooper's veto of the abortion bill. CMPD, they have set up a scene along Barrington Drive just off the plaza. Let's get to Channel 9's Glenn Counts, who is live there trying to learn more. Glenn, it looks very active there right now. And that breaking news is in Northwest Charlotte, where someone, we're told, shot an 8-year-old girl inside her home.
Eyewitness news.
Yeah, lucky being the key word there, looking at that mess behind you. All right, Glenn, thank you very much. All right, it's official. The new director of the CDC is coming from North Carolina. Today, the White House confirmed what we first told you about 2 weeks ago. Mandy Cohen will lead the agency.
Before that crash.
And tonight, we're hearing from the person who owns this home for the first time since that crash happened. Hunter, you learned the governor is asking Duke for a full review of what happened here, right? We've just learned that 2 people are facing charges for the death of a 12-year-old boy. Major change to Hornets ownership has the Queen City buzzing.
He sold his team.
Yes.
Wow.
Hey, you heard that right. Michael Jordan selling the team. The impact this could have on the franchise going forward. Right now on Eyewitness News, the owner of this home tells us he was asleep when a truck being chased by police crashed into his house, leaving this damage behind. The vehicle was going so fast that when it wrecked into this tree, a headlight flew off and went through this fence, all just feet from this man's home. He could have easily been hit. The 7-Eleven was. You can see this is the destruction left behind. Crews are started this evening to clean up what was left of the storage room here that it crashed into, damaging the storage room. If we go over, you can see the front fender. I think it's important to mention I just got here about 10 minutes ago, so there's a lot that I'm still learning, a lot of questions that I'm going to be asking. But I can tell you that we're in the Chateau subdivision here in Southwest Charlotte. This all played out at about 5 o'clock. But I want to take you upstairs to Chopper 9 Sky Zoom at about 5:33. This is what our chopper saw. That's what the former trooper's case went before a judge here in Mecklenburg County. And today, earlier, I spoke with a family. And tonight, I asked Elevation Church who knew what and when. Benjamin Damron volunteered as a youth leader in several large Charlotte churches. When he was arrested in November, accused of abusing several teenage boys, it shocked a lot of people, but not this mom.
And there was his face right there. This is the person that no one would believe me when I came to them and said, he's a sexual predator.
Angela asked us not to share her last name. She says she has spent more than a decade trying to warn church organizations that Damron should not be near children. She says in 2011, she and her family attended a church in San Antonio where Damron was a youth pastor, and that she found Facebook messages between Damron and her then 13-year-old son.
I was sick to my stomach. Ben Damron had been pursuing my son for a long time, for months. Obsessing with my son, early morning, late at night.
She says the messages show Damron, then in his mid-20s, contacting her son in the middle of the night, encouraging him to discuss sexual topics. At one point saying, "It amazes me how ticklish you are." The messages show Damron on multiple occasions trying to get alone time with her son. In one exchange, when the boy was home alone with strep throat, Damron offered to come over and take care of him.
I said, no, you have strep throat. And he messaged that to Ben Damron, and Ben's response was, I'll only catch it if we kiss.
Angela says she took this stack of Facebook messages to a prosecutor where they told her that this was certainly creepy, but not criminal.
He said, this is a predator. He said, hold on to these. This is a sexual predator, and he knows exactly where the lines are.
Angela says she also reported Damron to the San Antonio church, but when little was done, her family left. Fast forward to 2019. She learned Damron was volunteering as a youth leader and drummer at Elevation Church in Matthews. She showed us emails she had sent to Elevation, including those Facebook messages. She says to warn them. No one from Elevation ever responded to her. Then she saw his name on the news, something she had predicted in her emails.
The suspect, Mr. Damron, met all of these victims in his role as a church youth leader.
In November of 2022, 3 people came forward claiming they were sexually assaulted by Damron when they were teenagers.
When you pulled up the news and saw his face,
it was, I was praying for him to be exposed. So it was shocking that this person that I had tried and tried to stop was finally caught.
Angela says after seeing the news, she contacted Elevation again and spoke to their director of security. She said he knew nothing about her previous emails and asked her to send them again and apologized.
Everyone is so sorry that it happened.
This week, I asked Elevation why the church never responded to Angela about her concerns. Yesterday, I received a statement saying that within weeks of Angela's email, pastors addressed the situation and the youth group Damron helped lead stopped meeting and he left the church. But Elevation never said any of that publicly when Damron was arrested in November. I also asked whether church leadership investigated his interactions in the youth group or if they went to police. So far, no answers on that. Angela is just glad Damron's been arrested and says she'll be happier if he's convicted.
There was an exhilarating rush. He's caught. He's caught. And then there was this reality that hit so hard. Everything I knew about him was true.
Elevation said in that statement that they did take Angela's concerns very seriously, but they do admit they didn't do the best job at communicating with her. I checked with her about an hour ago. She says no one from the church has called her. And Erica, I did reach out to Damron's attorneys. They declined to comment. In Matthews this evening, Dan Matics, Channel 9, Eyewitness News.
It's just a terrible drug. I mean, it's a veterinary drug. It's not meant for humans.
Louise Vincent is among a fast-growing group of people who can tell you just how horrible the drug known on the street as Trank really is.
It is truly one of the most difficult things I've had to overcome, and I've overcome a lot.
Trank is the slang for the animal tranquilizer xylazine. In an effort to mimic the effect of heroin, xylazine is being combined with fentanyl that's sold on the street. Trank not only causes the heart to slow, but can cause horrific ulcers and skin lesions. It's getting so bad that the federal government is calling the drug an emerging threat, meaning it will put together a national response plan.
I've seen some of the worst flesh wounds ever in patients in my practice as a physician, to the point that oftentimes amputations of the limbs have to happen.
This is an image of a patient in Philadelphia. The ulcers are so jarring, we've blurred the worst part of the lesion. The DEA says from 2020 to 2021 in the South, the presence of Trank rose by 193%, and overdose deaths, where Trank was detected, increased it by 1,127%. Louise Vincent did not know she was coming into contact with Trank. She says it's most often in the drug supply that's sold as heroin.
They look so horrible. The wounds are so insanely, I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. And it's just devastating.
She says the wounds became so horrible on her arm, she was forced to go to a hospital. Fortunately, doctors did not have to amputate.
how would you describe it?
The epitome of stigma. Like really, it is so, you can barely show pictures of them without it being so graphic that it's too much. Like, people gasp.
Louise now helps run the North Carolina Survivors Union. They help get drug users on a path to recovery with food and a needle exchange program.
Right? You're paralyzed for a moment.
Oh, you guys are here.
Hold on, I'm doing the news.
Even during our interview, people were showing up for help. And she says people actually come here for medical help with Trank wounds because of how they're treated in the hospital.
Did you feel when you were dealing with us that you couldn't go to the hospital?
Absolutely. It's never something you want to do. It's never, and my trip to the hospital was really horrible.
As health leaders at the national and state level study how to prevent trank contamination, she says there needs to be more of a boots-on-the-ground approach with more listening.
When we had a pill crisis, we talked to doctors. Now we have a contamination and poisoning crisis. Right. We need to talk to the people that are involved in getting that on the street.
Okay. Dan Matics, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
But I learned when doing this story that there's a challenge when it comes to people who are newly homeless.
It's very heavy, a lot of sweatshirts.
Cynthia Nance is 61 years old. She has never been without a home until the beginning of this year. All of her belongings now fit into the shopping cart.
Did you ever think that you would be in this situation?
No. In fact, I think the first month I was in shock. You start thinking back about what you lost. I had a good life.
After 40 years working in retail, in 2022, life changed. She was diagnosed with multiple serious medical conditions, including bladder cancer. Several hospital stays meant that she could not work, and disability ran out. She lost her job, her car, then by the end of the year, when her only family member died, her home.
That it could happen to anyone before, at a blink of an eye. And then, like I said, it snowballed.
Stacey McBride runs Pineville Neighbors Place. Her nonprofit helps 50 people a month who are homeless or are dealing with housing insecurity. McBride says they're seeing more people with stories similar to Cynthia's.
We have a number of people who are over the age of 60 that we help on a weekly basis that are living in the streets. And they have been on the streets for between 6 and 8 months.
McBride says because most shelters have a waiting list, those like Cynthia who are experiencing homelessness for the first time are more likely to fall through the cracks.
You know, many of the shelters have to prioritize people with children, or people who are fighting an addiction, or other things like that. If you're a single person and you've been on the street for less than 12 months, it's very difficult to find stable shelter.
I have tried my hardest to get out of the situation. But like I said, everything, the door's closed.
Which is why she sleeps on the streets. Ironically, steps from the hospital, where at the end of the month, she will start chemotherapy.
Are you going to be coming back on the streets after your treatments?
Probably so. Probably so.
But McBride wants to keep that from happening. She's working to help Cynthia get her Social Security benefits and find shelter.
That people have given me.
Until then, it's the kindness of others that's keeping her going.
I don't want to live like this.
Here in Uptown, you can see this intersection here next to Truist Field where you can still see the burnout marks. People say they are fed up with this and they are demanding police do something.
It was just chaos. I mean, it was just nothing like I'd ever seen.
This is what Robert Zuinga found at Steel Creek Road in Westinghouse on his way home around 11 o'clock Saturday night. He says 100 people were blocking the roads, racing and burning out. When he tried to drive through, he says people surrounded his car.
I got really nervous at that point, and the only thing I could think of doing is getting a machete that I had in the back seat, and actually it was still in the package. So I pulled the machete out and I held it to the window just to get him to back up.
That's when he says they attacked his car, busting out the back window. One person says they even fired a gun at him before he was able to get away and called 911.
I stayed on with her for 20 minutes, no police, nothing.
One night earlier, the same thing happened in South Park. People there complained about it taking police more than an hour to respond. We asked police if they are investigating and about their response times, but they haven't answered our questions. City Councilwoman at large Dimple Ajmira says she's putting the pressure on CMPD, but says they're already on it, pointing to the fact of more than 50 street racers that were arrested in 2021.
Well, guess what? They already have a pressure from the community, and everyone is demanding answers here. We got to hold these people accountable.
Well, we heard it first.
Michelle Tallman recorded this video from her apartment balcony of the same thing happening Friday night. You can see how many cars are backed up with traffic blocked at this intersection near Truist Field in Uptown.
Somebody is going to get hurt. If you look at the video, there's The cars came pretty close to some of those people.
From here in Uptown to South Park to Still Creek, so many people you heard are fed up. As far as the CMPD investigation and the delayed response, they tell me that their division leaders are discussing this, but right now they don't have any updates for us. Live in Uptown, Dan Matics, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.